Daddy, you.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Dusty. I'm 28. I have 2 boys. Maddox is almost 2.5, and Nico is almost 11 months. Before I had those 2 guys, I had 2 miscarriages. I was first pregnant in 2013, and I lost the baby around 7 weeks. And then I was pregnant again later in 2014, and 2014, and I lost the baby around 13 weeks. So,
were you prepared to handle that? Like when you had kids and you got pregnant, like did you have this conception that like everything was just gonna work? Like how did that affect you going into maybe looking into having more kids after that, or where were you at after that?
Yeah, the first one definitely took me, like by surprise, and I was not prepared. I don't really think like anyone is prepared for it. And then the second one really started to make me worry about if I was going to be able to have kids. And that was definitely something that I always took for granted, and that I just assumed that I would be able to do, and like I would be able to have kids. And it was terrifying to think that maybe I come like from a family of 5 kids, and my husband and I always talked about having kids, and it was just something that was going to be a part of my life. So I had to really take a step back, and we decided just to like give it a break and not really like try anymore, and let my body heal, and let like myself heal emotionally and mentally. And then we decided like once we were going to start trying, we had to take precautions and we had to be prepared. And so I went and saw a specialist and did a bunch of testing, and there was nothing that they could tell me. There was nothing wrong physiologically. They could tell me, this is why you had the miscarriage. But they did put me on progesterone, which is a hormone that your body naturally produces. But I got like an extra dose of it just to improve the chances of keeping the pregnancy if and when I did get pregnant again.
When you did get pregnant and you have 2 boys, so how were your pregnancies like before going into the labor? You can talk about how you felt, and then like did you prepare any for the labor?
Okay. With my first son, Maddox, both my pregnancies were, thankfully, were really enjoyable, and I felt really good. I honestly feel the most comfortable in my skin pregnant, and I don't know if that sounds crazy, but I feel strong, and I feel like a sense of calm that I don't have when I'm not pregnant. It's exciting, and so anyway, with my first pregnancy, that's all I had to worry about. I just had to worry about eating well and exercising and like preparing and doing all the nesting and picking out crib sheets and doing all like the fluff. And it was a really exciting time. It was my parents' first grandchild, and my sisters and brothers' first niece or nephew. We didn't find out what we were having with our first. So it was like a really, really exciting time. I did a hypnobirth preparation for my first, and I did a lot of like prenatal yoga classes, and I was hiking 5 or 6 days a week. I just tried to take care of myself as best as I could. With my second pregnancy, I was chasing a toddler around, so I definitely was a lot busier, but I wasn't, exercising as much just because I didn't really have the time. I was still trying to eat well, but it was just finding a balance between taking care of my older son and taking care of myself. That second pregnancy flew by, and it was enjoyable, but I was also really nervous about letting go of that alone time with my first child. I felt more prepared because I knew what labor was going to be like. With my first son, I had a 28-hour labor, and with my second, I just prayed and hoped that it would maybe a little bit shorter. But I was able to prepare mentally in ways that I wasn't able to prepare the first time because I had no idea what was going to happen. So with my second, it was like a maybe 6-hour labor, and it was the most amazing thing that I've ever experienced. My first one, not so much, but I would do my second labor over and over and over again.
Where were you at for each of the labors? Like how, when your labor started, like, did you know it was happening? Like, what did that look like?
So for my first, I was 40 weeks and 3 days. 40 weeks and 3 days when I delivered Maddox, and I was so done. I was just ready to get him out. I was terrified. I was nervous. I was anxious. I was squatting. I was lunging. I was hiking. I was doing everything I could to try and go into labor. I went to acupuncture. I just did everything, and there was so much built up anxiety around what the heck is this going to be like, and partly nervous about the labor, but also so excited to meet the baby, and so I really think I created so much anxiety within myself and really put this block, or I was just kind of creating this tizzy within, I don't know, this within myself, and I think that really carried through into my labor. So on a Sunday night, I thought I was leaking amniotic fluid. I wasn't. I went into the hospital, they checked me, I wasn't. And then I started having smaller contractions that Sunday, Monday morning around 2 a.m. And I rushed back to the hospital, and I was 0.5 centimeters dilated, and my contractions stopped, and I just was not progressing. And they said I could go home, or I could just start walking and try and progress the labor. So I stayed there, and I walked, and I was just not dilating at all. I was scared and nervous, and I was not letting my body relax. And I wasn't creating that safe space for my body to do its thing. So 18 hours in, I ended up getting an epidural and got some rest and drank a little bit of water. And my body finally started to dilate, and about 28, at the 28-hour mark, I was finally dilated 10 centimeters, and 2.5 hours of pushing. He came outside. So,
for obviously for first time moms, going past that 40 week is we're scared because we think we're gonna have to get induced and all of the things that come with that. But as we know, most moms usually don't go on their due date,
right,
their guest date, and how did you feel from your provider? Did you feel any pressure from that side, and did that add to that pressure that you put on yourself, to have him come instead of just, allowing your body just to do what it's, gonna naturally do eventually? Do you think that affected you and the anxiety that you felt towards the end?
Right. Definitely. There was always the conversation because my mom had all of us, 2 weeks early, 2.5 weeks early, 1 week early. So there was that conversation oh, you're going to go early. Or you're really active, you're going to go early, or the belly's really low, you're going to go. And then the doctor also kind of, not telling me I was going to go early, but the later and later, like at my appointments, he would say things like, well, if you're not going to have the baby by this time, then, we could talk about getting induced. So already that conversation coming up, like, well, but I'm not even 37 weeks yet, like I'm not even that close. Like, yeah, we're in like the home stretch, but
Yeah.
I still have time. And kind of creating that conversation in my head, like, okay, you're doing this wrong, or you should be having the baby like a few weeks early or a week early or whatever. And then also the conversation about how much the baby, he's just going to be growing and getting bigger and bigger. And now, I'm going to be giving birth to a bigger baby, and that creating fear and tension within my body too. I wish that I would have maybe been in a different environment where it was more calming, and there was just that conversation of, because not once did he say anything like, just let your body do its thing, where that's something that I like to tell moms now that are first-time moms that are nervous about the birth. Trust your body, let your body do its thing. And I was never told that by my provider. So, which, I know you don't always get in a hospital setting,
So going from, Maddox to Nico, where were you at, when you had Nico, and when that labor started to happen? Did you feel more prepared because you had been through it, or was it just as scary,
I definitely felt more prepared. I ended up doing a labor prep class taught by my friend Michelle at United Yoga Studio, and it really gave me a lot of visuals to hang on to, like the conversations and the different meditations and different journaling that we did during the course. They really stuck with me, and I was able to hold on to different phrases and different, like I was able to address my fears and like work through them. And one thing that I hung on to with Nico, and also, I knew the signs, I knew what I was looking for, I knew what the Braxton Hicks felt like, I knew what the smaller contractions felt like, I knew what the labor contractions felt like. So there's just more knowledge that you have the second time around. So, but like the one visual I was able to hang on to with Nico that I really truly believe helped him come the way he did was that I just imagined him dancing down. And I read a passage, or it was just talking about how, like, to let your body dance, like let your baby and your body dance together, and really visualize like him coming down into the cervix, and like, so that was something that, and I really let my body move during the labor with him too, physically, like rocking my hips and not involving my husband right away, and just getting in the tub and getting in the shower and contacting you and, like my doula, my midwife friends, and just had a much different approach, a lot less fear, a lot more excitement, a lot more confidence. And I really chose to rely on the knowledge that my body already has, and like really try and turn inward and just trust it completely.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience. I barely got to the hospital. I barely got out of the elevator. The midwife barely made it in. And it was really powerful.
Had you allowed yourself to get comfortable like you did with Nico, mm-hmm. and you kind of it sounded like you set a lot of the fear away, mm-hmm. and like when we don't know what we're getting ourselves into, obviously it's like an unknown thing, but had you came into it like already like feeling empowered, and you kind of knew what you desired, and you didn't have that like underlying fear there. Do you think that would have been beneficial for you in your birth with Maddox?
Yeah, I mean, oh, absolutely. I think there's so much power in like knowing how your body works and knowing really what is going to go on during labor. And I did do a class through the hospital with Maddox. So I gained the medical knowledge of what was going on, but I really wish I would have done a more, I don't even know how, I mean, basically what I did with Nico, like a more emotional, mental work and addressing fears and really saying things like, I'm afraid the baby's not going to come out, or I'm afraid something's going to happen to me, or really being very specific about what your fears are and being in a safe space to work through them with someone like a midwife or a doula or a prenatal yoga instructor or someone that can offer you support and really give you tools to take with you. And yeah, I really think that it can make all the difference. If I had to give myself advice while I was pregnant, it would be to get really good at asking for help, to accept help, to tell people specifically what you need, whether it's something physical or some type of emotional support. I don't think it matters if you have one kid or if you have 7 kids. You have to be open to asking for support and asking for help. And it's not easy at all. And there's a lot of like shame and guilt and this feeling of like, well, I should be able to be doing this and I should be able to know what I need or what my baby needs, or I should be able to take care of my family like I used to, or cook like I used to, or clean like I used to, or perform at my job like I used to. But everything changes, and it's not a bad thing, but it's like culture shock, and you just don't know what it's like until you're in it. And so I would just tell her to be prepared to stay open and to literally just take in everything people offer you and learn to say thank you over and over and over again. In 3 words, I would describe my birth with Maddox to be intense, marathon-like, and life-changing.
I love you.
And with Nico, I would describe it as being powerful and quick and raw.
She